Welcome to the Larry Kreider's Leadership Podcast. Larry is the author of over 40 books, the founder of Dove International, a worldwide family of churches and ministries in 6 continents, and has over 50 years of leadership experience. He and his guests will share inspirational leadership insights from their journey with God. These insights, gleaned from serving leaders in many nations, will transform your life and leadership. For more information on Larry's books and resources, visit LarryKreider.com.
Hi, this is Larry Kreider with the Larry Kreider Leadership Podcast, and I have the privilege week after week of interviewing friends and key leaders in the body of Christ throughout the world. And today I have a special friend, special guest from the nation of Mozambique, José Ecclesiastes. Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're going to learn, and you've got 28 years behind you right now. So many leaders that I talk to are like in their 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s.
Yes.
But I wanted to interview you because I've seen you at 28 be used of God so much in leadership already. And we want to talk about the things that God has done, and we're going to learn together. And again, this podcast people listen to from 75 probably plus different nations. And but there are certain biblical leadership truths that we can learn. Mm-hmm. That if we apply them, it not only helps us, but it helps those that we serve. So, José, let's talk about you and what you've learned and what God has done in your life. 28 years of age, you grew up in Mozambique. Tell me about where you grew up and what that was like.
I was born in a place called Inhambane, Mozambique, and shifted to Maputo, the capital.
Yes, I've been
with
there.
My parents when I was 2. So I grew up in nominal Christian family.
Sure.
Yeah, that means, if we had to fill a form that said, are you a Christian or not?
You check it, right?
Yeah, but I know we're not Christians.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
The reason I wanted to hear from you and hear your story, one of the reasons is because, God's used you in radio throughout your city. People will know who you are. You preach on radio and television. You're a pastor of a church, a growing church. I've been to your church. I watched God use you there. But let's go back to where it all started. You said you grew up in a nominal Christian home.
Yes.
How did that change for you? How did you come into a vital relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, I actually, when I was 16, I was awarded a scholarship, a high school scholarship. So I came to the States.
Oh, wow.
For 1 year and then went back. And when I got back, I found that my best friends were radically saved and
wow.
The Christian. So they shared my story is very I believe it's a story of how anybody needs to be saved. I did not grow up a typical bad boy doing all the wrong things.
Right.
But today I know if I had lost my life when I was 17, I would have gone to hell because I had not heard the gospel and I had not believed it. So my friends told me the message, the true message, and that despite not having issues, everything looked perfect. But when the word was spoken, there was one issue that came up in my heart, and it was that if I died at that point, I would go to hell. That became very clear.
Yes.
And so through that, I decided, no, I don't want to go to hell. That was the original reason. I said, I don't want to go to hell and I want to follow Jesus. But thanks be to God, 1-2 years later, I also learned about the love of God.
Yes,
but my roots are following God with all your heart. Because I did not know He loved me so much, but I wanted to follow Him.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. That's an amazing story. So when you were, of course, in Mozambique, you went to school there in your local area, and then eventually you mentioned that you came to USA.
Yes.
Was that before you were in university?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you went to university, if I remember correctly, somewhere in India. Is that correct?
India, right.
How did that happen?
I was also awarded another merit-based scholarship to India
So you had a scholarship both places. That's
both
amazing.
places,
God's hand was on you so much during that time.
Right.
And so when you're involved in any type of leadership in university, like you learned leadership somewhere.
I think it was the Lord, because when we were 13 students from Mozambique in India, and the first day we got there, there were some logistics issues.
Sure.
So we had to stay, all of us 13 in one room, just waiting. And I just, as we were sitting there, that was the first time I led people. I told them, we are going to pray here right now. All of us stand up. I commanded them. That was not the best kind, but I told them, all of us, let's stand up. We are praying. And there was a brother there who was actually a Christian for some time. And he said, no, first we're going to listen to a message. So he put a video, we watched, and then we prayed. And got to our university,
Sure.
met some other guys who were Christians, strong Christians, and they decided to start a fellowship. But they had the vision, but I became the hands. The one who went and called everybody.
Right.
And I was the noisiest there. So, yeah, and then I just helped lead with those guys, the fellowship. And 2 years later, I became the Bible study leader of the fellowship. Then the main leader got into some trouble, and then I had to lead that fellowship.
God had you right in place at the right time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. What are some other examples of leadership that you experienced during those days or soon after that? Like the fellowship?
Yeah.
Weren't you involved in a church plant in India?
When I finished my university studies, I decided to stay for one extra. I felt I should stay
Sure.
one extra year in India, and I immediately wanted to start, because from the beginning I knew I was called to the ministry. So immediately I finished. I was just there to finish and then
Sure.
start. I wanted to go on ministry immediately after graduating, and full time. That's what I wanted. But a mentor, Simon Ruas, told me, you need to learn some more. So you look for somebody to assist, look for a ministry to help in that ministry.
Yes.
So, and we tried taking ourselves to some places, but God took us to a very wonderful lady in Hyderabad, India, who was starting a church. So I actually didn't speak to her about helping, but she saw something
Yes.
in us,
Yes.
my wife and I, because we are now moving around together
Yes.
at that time. So she saw something in us, and she gave us an opportunity to help in her ministry. So I was initially leading the worship team in her ministry. So that was the last part I did. So we helped, and we would also lead Bible studies and things like that. So,
That's amazing. So you were being mentored by this woman of God for a season.
Yeah, for a season.
She was giving you responsibility,
Yes,
and you were doing the
yes.
things that she asked you to do.
Really, she was believing in us.
Exactly. So that's the real key. Find someone who believes in you.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of person you want to mentor you, somebody who can really believe in you, obviously. And then you spent a year there, and now so the two of you were married, and your wife's from Mozambique also, correct?
Yes.
And today you have some children. Tell us about that.
We have 3 boys.
You do. 3 preachers coming up, huh?
3 preachers.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. So talk to me about when you came back to Mozambique,
Yes.
and you started a church. Walk us through that.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
At the time I was in India, we were actually dating with Camila, but we were very close friends. So we'd be everywhere doing things together.
Okay.
So I had gotten, then after the 1 year, I'd become very calm about wanting to do ministry. So I looked for a job in India because I needed to take care of myself. So I looked for a job, and I got a job, but I needed to go home to change my visa to a work visa.
Okay.
And marry Camila and come back to India and serve God in India whilst also working. But when you got there in Mozambique, I decided I'm going to, look for some of my old friends, 3 of them, 3, 4, and we'll start a Bible study with them, and we'll share the things we know with them, because they were not really saved. So we'll share the things we know with them. And we did that. We started doing that. That was 3 days before our wedding. We started our Bible study.
Wow.
And
how old were you when this was all happening?
I was 23 at this time.
23,
My wife was 22. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the process to change my visa got delayed, and the Bible study grew. The number of people coming grew very fast in that first period. So, and the documents were not flowing well.
Right.
But one thing happened. I really did not want to come back to Mozambique. But the day we traveled by flight, the Lord put in my heart that you are not coming back to India. But I did not want to stay in Mozambique. But I knew. But I think my problem was we used to pray a lot. Let your will be done in my life. Let your will unfold in my life. And I usually nowadays say this is a dangerous prayer because it's a prayer that gives legal access to God to do certain things you are not in your natural self willing to do. But when you pray like that, He guides us and causes us to be.
So when you pray like that, obviously you're submitted to the Lord, and that's what happens. Your heart was submitted, even though from a natural perspective you did not want to do that.
I even told him I don't speak Portuguese because I've been 5 years in India, but I spoke, of course.
Of course. And speaking of that, how many languages do you speak?
I speak about, international languages, English, Portuguese, and I understand Spanish, I understand some French, and then I speak 4, Bantu languages. Yeah.
That is amazing. So you're back in Mozambique. You got married over that time then?
Yes, we got married, yes.
Okay, and you started the Bible study. You had some of your friends, and so many of us started the same way. You simply look for open doors. What's the open door? Look for relationships that you have, and you see what God does. And God's the one that has to breathe on it, or it's not going to work anyway. But we take these steps of faith. So what happened then to this Bible study?
The Bible study just started growing, and then people's lives were being changed through the teachings, and also we'd have camps, and God would gift, in ways that, amazing, crazy ways. I remember there was a guy who on a Thursday, he was at the bar drinking, but we convinced him to attend one of our camps. And by Sunday, he was giving precise word of knowledge, like names that he did, names that you're not supposed to know, details you're not supposed to know. And this is incredible. The first person he gave a word of knowledge like that was my wife. Wow. So we were, before I used to be a bit skeptical about these things, but when people that I led to Christ and prayed for them got into this, I had to believe it. So, a lot of people started being gifted this way, and so they started going out and ministering healing to people, and
beautiful.
We saw a lot of the gifts of the Spirit in the people that we were leading, so that caused a lot of, I became famous in my area where I grew up. And people, that's the guy who messed up our people. But in the sense, this was, in Mozambique, they call Mapaga Ben, like a person who pays well for others to drink alcohol. Yeah. And some of those people were leaving those, the bars. So that person who used to pay is no longer there. So they said, that's the guy who is messing up our people. Like that. And, it was beautiful. God really helped us. So, it has been like that from that time up to today. It has been very alive and, changes.
So talk to me, Jose, about what happened over this time where you actually became a church.
Yes.
Because you had a Bible study.
Yes.
And that was wonderful. Often that's the way things started. We had to study the Bible together. Yeah. But did you recognize that God's calling you to be a pastor of a church? And
yes.
How did that all happen?
I actually never wanted to be a pastor.
I agree with you. I didn't want to either.
Yeah, even after starting the Bible study, I used to tell people I'm not a pastor, because they would ask, we should become a church, and things like that. And I would tell them, I am not a pastor. I'm just giving you Bible study. I'm not a pastor. I'm never going to be a pastor. But after some time, it was, I just began to sense that this was what the Lord had called me for, at least in that season and up to now, that He had called me to pastor those people. And one of the, right now is a Dove leader, confirmed that, he came and said, he came to visit me. And before he left, he said, this morning, the Lord said, I should pray for you. He knew I hated the idea of being a pastor, the person. And he said, you are supposed to be a pastor, and this is becoming a church from today onwards. So he prayed for us and all the processes, and we became a church like that.
Wow.
Yeah, It's a simple process.
So what does your church look like today? I say your church, the church that you pastor.
Yes.
What does it look like today? And we've been through COVID and all that. Tell me some stories. What happened during that time? I know your church has really grown.
Yeah. During COVID, when COVID hit, they closed everything, and we started doing what everybody else was doing, which is live streams and Facebook live streams and all those things.
Sure.
But nobody was watching our videos, our streams. At the time, the church had about maybe 70 people or so.
Sure.
And but 7 people would be watching. Only the tithe would be watching.
Right.
And so I decided to pray about that for some days to find out what's happening. Why isn't anybody watching? Because they would be watching, other streams. People would watch other streams, but mine, they were not watching. And the Lord asked me I took some time to pray and whatever, fast, and the Lord asked me, who told you to do the streams? And I understood. He did not want me to be doing that. That was not him for me, for my case.
Sure.
So I continued praying to know what should I do. And he told me, take the group, divide the group into groups of 10 people, and let them lead each other. But at the beginning, he told me something interesting, which I cannot do anymore. But he said, you go to each of those groups, schedule the groups so that they have 3 meetings a week, 1 meeting with you and 2 meetings by themselves. So I said, you go in a circuit in those groups and teach them. And the next day I was reading 1 Samuel, and it says that Samuel went into every town.
Yeah.
Of course, there it says judging them, and he went town from town in a circuit. That's how it says, in a circuit. Right. And I knew that was God yesterday, so we started doing that. And long story cut short, after the opening up of the churches, the number of the members had tripled. So from in fact, it more than tripled, because we were around 70. Right now, we are close to 300 people.
That's amazing.
In the church. So.
Well, I've been with you a few years ago before COVID, and I just saw the life of God in the church then, and all these young leaders. I think you're probably one of the oldest persons in the church. Is that right?
It's true.
Yeah, they're all these young leaders on fire for God with tremendous potential to reach not only your nation with the gospel of Jesus, but reach the nations of the world. So what are some things you've learned now as you've been serving in a leadership role? And, our religious system says call that person a pastor. We understand that may not be your number one gift. You have more probably of an apostolic gift than you have that. Mm-hmm. But what have you learned over these years, just these last few years, as you've seen this church grow? What have you learned about leadership?
I think for me the most important thing is I look at life, my life as I'm following the Lord.
Yes.
Not necessarily I am trying to be a pastor, I'm trying to be this. I am following Jesus.
That's
so
very
it's good. In leadership, we are still following him. So trying to get the right instructions, keeping the right, I think a good leader is really a very good Christian.
Right.
So trying to just follow the things that he says in his word or his voice. And I've always focused on just following what he's saying and what I have learned in the word that is right for me to do, and also really being able to see, because I believe that we can receive things from other people.
That's right.
Just having the eyes to be able to see people that are walking with God and have walked with God more than you. And some of those people, they are not externally visible, that they are that kind of people, those kind of people. So being able to have eyes that are open to perceive that this is a man of God. You may not sometimes we find people that lead ministries that are smaller than the ones we are leading, churches that are smaller, but they know the Lord more than you. There might be a reason why, but they know the Lord more than us. So being able to see those who know God and have walked with him powerfully, so that I have the openness to receive everything that I need to receive.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a lot to be received from the Lord, but also from the Lord through other
That's very good.
servants of God. So those are,
That's very good. So we're always learning.
Yeah.
I'm in my 70s and I am still learning. Every week I'm learning from people, and we all keep learning. And sometimes we learn from people we wouldn't expect. And God gives mantles. I had a friend from Hong Kong once, and he said, God gives some leaders, like in the church world, give them a big umbrella, some a small umbrella. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, some have larger ministries, some have smaller ministries, but God's one who gives them those umbrellas, so to speak.
Right.
And so the key is that we're all being obedient to God. It's not so much what we do, it's being obedient and do what the Lord tells us to do, what Jesus tells us to do. Yeah. Now, you have helped many people because of your radio broadcast. How did that happen?
The voice of the Holy Spirit. He spoke to us, you need to be on radio. And we obeyed. We went to the radio station and told them a door was open. A door was open for us, and they accepted us. Though that was a big step of faith, because we told them we are coming next month and we had no money to pay for the broadcast. And just out of the blue, a guy from Angola, we live in Mozambique,
yes.
a brother we met in India from Angola,
yes.
decided to pay for some months in
Wow.
advance for us, and we started doing the program. But the money he paid eventually was finished. We needed more, and we started having debts. But the owner of the station one day heard us speaking, and he asked, who is that boy speaking on the show? On the radio,
yes.
Who is that boy? Who is he? Where is he from? And
Sure.
they told him he's from. He said, "I like that boy, and you make sure he stays there. Don't allow him to
Praise
leave
God.
there." So we found so much favor. We have been doing the show, but God also brought partners with time, and we have been able
Sure.
to take care of that. And it's
Use
been a
the word
blessing.
favor. The Bible's clear that God surrounds us with favor like a shield, the
Right.
scriptures tell us. And, I think another key principle that you're sharing so clearly is we expect the favor of God.
Yeah.
We trust God for that. God wants to give us grace. He wants to give us favor. And you're seeing that happen in your life.
Right.
So I remember many years when I was a young Christian leader and a young pastor. Again, I say pastor, they called me that, but quote unquote,
Yeah.
I never felt like much of a pastor. But I knew I was called to lead people to Jesus.
Right.
I knew that, and called to see them discipled and grow. And the Lord opened up the door for us to be in television. And a lot of people knew about what we were doing and knew about our church because of television, because God opened the door for a season of time. It was about 10 to 12 years season of time. Now, you're also involved in some television. Tell us about that.
Right. It's a similar story as the radio, but different because this time they invited me for an interview on TV, and it happened that this time again the owner of the TV watched me, and he also asked in the same way. He asked, "Who is that boy speaking on TV?" And then he said, "Because I like the way he's speaking, make sure he's here frequently." So
Beautiful.
that's how. And for the TV, we're actually not paying anything.
Beautiful.
We're just there by the grace of God.
That says
By the
back,
favor of God,
yeah,
yes.
back to the grace and favor of the Lord. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Now, I know you well enough to know, and I've heard you talk about this publicly, that you have a heart for your generation to know how to respond to spiritual fathers and respond to those who are older in the Lord. And of course, my heart as an older leader is the heart cry for spiritual fathers and mothers of the nations. I've written about that and been translated throughout the world. So I want to hear your heart on this a bit. I think this will really help our listeners. Talk to us about your heart. How should younger leaders respond to those who've been down the road much longer in leadership? Talk to us about that.
Yes. The key word is honor.
Honor.
The key word is honor. And if we, place a value on those people, it actually opens doors to you. Honor opens doors to us, and it also opens the heart of the Father to you.
Yeah.
Because some of the spiritual heritage, the Father has to be willing to release that heritage to you. And when we honor our fathers, they also open up to us. Not verbally, but their heart opens. And I don't know how this works exactly, but I know it works.
It does.
When we honor because the Bible says if if I'm your father, then where is my honor? I know that has to do with the Father in heaven, but also here on earth also. Where if they are fathers, where is your honor?
Yes.
So to honor the fathers. And then the other thing is really understanding that mature people will usually not show you what they are in the spirit and all the things they are able to do when they have been able to do. They will not show you anything.
Right.
You have to be clever, you have to be wise, and you have to be discerning to know this person I'm with has been walking with God. That way there is, you set yourself in a position to receive spiritually from those people. Even when they don't know, you can still receive from them spiritually and continue what they are doing, hearing them attentively when they speak, trying to understand what are they all about, and understand that you cannot fully know a person in one day, just being he said this, what about this. No, you need time. So what the best thing you can do, the safe ground is honor and valuing those people for who they are. And even my culture helps a lot, because in our culture, if a person is just a bit older than you, you really have to respect them. You really have to honor them. You really have to prioritize them. And that helps us, I think, has helped me a lot, And also, I thank God, my father was not a very authoritative man, but I still had to honor him and submit to him and just, be there. And so that
comes through. That comes through with your spirit, of course. As a spiritual father myself, I encourage spiritual fathers around the world and spiritual sons to connect with one another. Yeah. And I encourage spiritual fathers to reach out, ask questions to those who are younger. How can I serve you? How can I pray for you? How can I stand with you? What could I impart to you? Those kinds of things. And so you're saying, as you talk to spiritual sons who be your age or even older or younger, that the real key is honor. Honor goes both ways. There needs to be an honoring of my generation, honoring the younger generation at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that. Well, our time has gone so fast. I do want to ask you, is there anything else that you'd say to younger leaders or those who are aspiring to leadership? Say, I know you've got a long road ahead of you. God's got so many things planned for your life. God's going to use you powerfully, not only Mozambique, but the nations. But is there anything you'd like to say to younger leaders who be listening today?
Yeah. I think, when you are young, it's easy. I mean, young people, when Paul talks about the passions of youth, I believe a major part of it, he's probably talking about the desire to succeed.
Correct.
In life. When you are young, you are really ambitious. You really want to succeed.
Right.
But it's good to know that when you have obtained that success, you might not be satisfied at that time. So being a person who is willing to lay down the possibility of a certain kind of success will help you to only have God to follow, to only have the Lord to follow.
That's right.
Because if this possibility is not laid down, then I still want to do the things that I need to do in order to succeed this way that I've imagined. Right. But if I lay this thing down and say, no matter what I'm going to do with my life is follow Jesus, then that is going to, I believe that is going to help anybody to get where they need to go, and just be willing to risk everything to follow him, to do what he wants us to do. I think that is key.
That is a real key. José, it was so good having you on today. In fact, if people want to get a hold of you, we're going to put your information on our show notes.
Sure.
And so anybody who'd like to get a hold of José and hear more of his heart and find ways to partner together, that'll be on the show notes today. And this, to me, was refreshing, because talking to someone who's 28 years of age, you learned so much already by the grace of God. You've only begun this journey. You know, Joseph, remember, he was like 30 when he came into his own, and you're not even at that place yet, and God's done so much already. It's such a great, great blessing. So thank you so much. And for everyone listening to the Larry Kreider Leadership Podcast today, it's great to have you with us. Here's where we learn those small things, those small changes we can make in our lives that will make a huge difference to those who we serve in leadership in the future. So just say thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you for listening to Larry Kreider's Leadership Podcast. If you want more information about any of Larry's books, daily devotionals, small group resources, or any other teachings, go to larrykreider.com.